Hey everybody and welcome to Critical Crafting. Today we're going to be talking about torches. I was thinking to myself, what is more comforting on a cold winter's day than a torch or a mage blasting a bunch of goblins to death with fireball? So we're going to look at crafting that. Part 1 of this tutorial covers a super quick and easy way to make torches, 10 minutes tops. You'll start with either use matches, toothpicks, or shish kebab sticks, really anything that looks like a torch. You're going to take those items and then use that as the base for the torch that you're creating. Go ahead and smooth it out if it has square edges with either an X-Acto knife or sandpaper. Next, I use some scrap insulation foam and create sort of a natural base for the torch. This is super lightweight, so we're going to be adding something to make sure that it doesn't fall over here in a second. Using the rock method I've talked about in previous videos, you add a little bit of texture to that base, break off a few pieces to make it look a little bit more dynamic, and carve some holes in there where you will stick your base of the torches. Go ahead and glue on a rock or some other heavy object that looks natural, put some glue into those holes, and go ahead and stick your mini torches into the base. Next we apply a base coat. I use Apple Barrel Black for this on pretty much everything. It's very inexpensive and highly effective. Now for the pièce de résistance of this, our Liquid Nails Clear Seal. This is what creates the flame on all of our fire effects we're going to be working on. This stuff is amazing because unlike hot glue, you don't really have to work too hard to get it to hold its shape. It's going to just kind of sit there and you can pull on it with a toothpick or any other implement. Be careful not to use your fingers. Some people are allergic to it and it is pretty darn sticky. But the point is that you can create super dynamic fire effects very, very quickly using this stuff, and it's pretty inexpensive. To paint my fire effects, I create a wash of Vallejo Lemon Yellow, and I'll apply that near the base. Next, I'll create a wash of the clear orange from Vallejo and apply that just above the yellow at the base. Note that I'm kind of mixing the two together. And I'll do the same next with the flat red from Vallejo near the tip. You don't have to use washes, but I really like the transparency that it gives. A few things to note here. Always remember that fire is lightest near the center. I have made a few mistakes here where I'll put red in the center and everyone makes fun of me on the internet. But the big point is, if you can't afford Vallejo or you don't want to use it for something like this and rather save it for your minis, you don't have to use it. You can use Apple Barrel or Liquitex or something similar. I really like to use it for smaller projects because it is a high quality paint and I really enjoy the way that it flows. Once the fire effects are done, the next step is to take some flat brown, mix that with the yellow, and then apply that to the torch base and then also down into the ground portion of this. So you're going to be taking more brown near the base, obviously, and then applying more yellow to create that sort of lighted effect near the top. You can see me blend the two together. And you kind of apply that all the way around the base, dry brushing with browns and various mixes of the yellow and brown. And I also take some flat green and go ahead and apply that onto the base. I find that this helps to allow the torch to be used in a lot of different instances. You could use a different color coding if you feel that that is appropriate. Then you go ahead and apply some additional coats of your yellows, oranges, and reds in various washes just to kind of flesh this out. Sometimes I lose a little bit of the transparency effect as I paint, so I'll put a skift of liquid nails on there. Watch me touch it with my fingers like I told you not to do, because I'm not afraid of toxic things. And look at that. Beautiful. We got some torches ready to go. Next, part 2, spell effects. For me, nothing is worse than having an epic spellcaster mini that lacks a spell effect. And maybe that's because I pretty much always play spellcasters, necromancers, Hail Vecna. Anyway, great way to add a touch of fireball to any spellcaster is to apply the same techniques we've used in the torch build earlier and simply take the liquid nails and apply it onto a hand, an arm, a foot, their face. I mean, wherever you want this spell effect to be coming from. The main difference between the torch and a spell effect when I am working on these is that I apply a much smaller amount of paint. I do not use washes. I primarily use dry brush on these and use it very sparingly. The reason that I do this is because if you paint on here and just paint, 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 you cover up what's underneath and you cover up the mini that's there. So if they have a fist or they have an outreaching hand or they have a staff, you can't see the staff anymore, and that kind of doesn't look great as opposed to having some of these fire effects and then you can still see their hand peeking through. And I really, really love that. Remember when creating these spell effects that even though you're using a dry brush, you're going to want to work quickly and blend the colors together. This is a super quick process and I love the results. Part 3. Magic Weapons. One of the best ways to create an epic encounter is to add an element of magic to one of these NPCs you're throwing at your character. Or maybe you're making a character for one of your players and they have an awesome magical item. A great way to create one of those is adding some fire or some other magical effect to it. And you can do this in the exact same way that we created the spell effect and the torch before. Taking those liquid nails, placing it onto the piece, pulling it up, and then applying paint as you see fit, either creating a fire effect or some other magical effect based on some different color scheme that maybe fits that player better. This is a wonderful way to create an epic looking character or villain for your campaign. Something to note with weapons, because they are so small, often a wash is the best way to go, similar to the torch, as opposed to the spell effect. I find that when I paint on repeated layers of dry coats for these, the weapon gets lost and it starts looking like a big blob of fire instead of a sword that has a flame effect. So use washes and continually wash over it if you find that something is wrong. One of the great things about liquid nails is if you find that you have completely screwed up, which, if I'm being honest, I did several times in the making of this video, you can peel it completely off, repaint the piece, and start over again. So in conclusion, with one technique and a few variations, you can make magic weapons for characters and villains, torches and other scatter settings for your campaign, and fire effects for some of your mages and spellcasters. I love this, it's super easy, it's super inexpensive, and I really hope to see some of the work you guys produce using these techniques. We'll see you next time. This is Dylan with Critical Crafting. And don't forget to support your local spellcaster by blasting that subscribe button with Fireball.